The conference room fell silent as the sharply dressed looked across the polished table, locked eyes with a nervous man clutching a resume, and quietly said, "I'm sorry, have we met before?" The applicant's face turned pale. His fingers began to shake. Every executive in the room sensed something had just changed. The man slowly lowered his head. "Yes." His voice barely escaped his lips. "I fired you." The room froze. No one understood why the company's owner suddenly stood up. No one understood why the interview had instantly become painfully personal. And no one could imagine that the desperate man asking for a second chance had once laughed while destroying the career of the very person now holding his future. But the biggest surprise wasn't that he had fired him. It was why. Stay with me until the end, because this story proves that power can disappear overnight, but character follows you forever. 3 years earlier, Marcus Johnson wasn't the loudest employee inside Harrison Tech Solutions. He wasn't the most connected. He didn't spend his lunch breaks flattering executives or attending expensive networking parties. Instead, he quietly solved problems everyone else avoided. When the software team missed deadlines, Marcus stayed late. When systems crashed, Marcus fixed them. When clients threatened to leave, Marcus calmly found solutions. His co-workers respected him. Customers trusted him. Even senior engineers occasionally asked for his advice. Yet, somehow, promotions always went to someone else. At first, Marcus convinced himself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe next quarter. Maybe next review. Maybe management simply hadn't noticed his work yet. But viewers, have you ever ignored small warning signs because you wanted to believe people were being fair? Marcus did, until one Monday morning changed everything. He walked into the office carrying coffee for 2 co-workers who had helped him finish a project over the weekend. Before he reached his desk, everyone suddenly became quiet. People avoided eye contact. Someone whispered, "I'm sorry, Marcus." "Sorry? For what?" He looked toward the manager's office. Standing inside, smiling beside human resources, was Richard Collins. Richard wasn't simply strict. He enjoyed reminding people that their careers depended on him. He believed fear created better employees. And there was one employee he seemed to dislike more than anyone else: Marcus. Richard slowly opened the office door. "Marcus." His voice echoed across the floor. "My office." Every keyboard stopped clicking. The entire department watched. Marcus entered calmly. Richard didn't ask him to sit. Instead, he slid a thin envelope across the desk. "We're eliminating your position." Marcus frowned. "My position?" Richard leaned back with a smug grin. "Budget restructuring." Marcus looked confused, but the company just announced record profits. Richard's smile widened. Funny how budgets work. Marcus noticed something strange. His own projects were stacked neatly inside boxes behind Richard's desk. Why pack them before telling him? That question immediately planted another. Was this decision already planned? Marcus remained respectful. "Can you explain what performance issue led to this?" Richard laughed. "No performance issue." Then he leaned forward. "I just don't think you fit the culture here." Those words hit harder than termination itself, because everyone in the room understood what Richard really meant. Marcus looked around. The leadership team consisted of 12 managers. Not one looked like him. For months, he'd watched less qualified employees receive opportunities, while his own achievements disappeared into silence. Suddenly, everything started making sense. But Marcus didn't argue. He simply nodded, collected his family photo, picked up the small plant sitting beside his monitor, then quietly walked toward the exit. Behind him, Richard said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Maybe next time try smiling more." Several managers laughed. No one defended Marcus. The elevator doors closed. For the first time in years, Marcus allowed himself to cry. Not because he had lost a paycheck, because someone had tried to convince him he had lost his worth. Weeks passed. Savings disappeared faster than expected. Marcus applied everywhere. Interview after interview ended with, We've decided to move in another direction. His confidence slowly began to crack. Then another problem arrived. His mother's medical treatments became more expensive. Bills piled across the kitchen table. One evening, Marcus quietly apologized. "I'm trying, Mom." She smiled despite her pain. "You've never been afraid of hard work. But maybe God is preparing you for work nobody else can give you." Marcus didn't fully understand those words. Not yet. One afternoon, his former co-worker, Angela, called. "You need to see something." She secretly forwarded internal company documents. Marcus expected project updates. Instead, he discovered Richard had hired two inexperienced contractors to replace the very position that supposedly no longer existed. Budget restructuring? That had been a lie. The firing had been personal. Marcus finally had proof, but instead of seeking revenge, he closed the laptop. What now? For the first time, the audience's question became Marcus's question. A month later, Marcus attended a free entrepreneurship seminar at the local community college. Honestly, he almost didn't go. He nearly stayed home feeling sorry for himself. That single decision changed everything. There he met retired technology executive Evelyn Brooks. Unlike everyone else, she didn't ask where Marcus worked. She asked, "What problem do you know better than anyone else?" That question completely changed the conversation. Marcus explained how medium-sized companies constantly struggle with outdated cybersecurity systems. He described practical solutions he'd been designing in his spare time. Evelyn listened quietly, then smiled. "You don't need another employer. You need your first customer." Marcus laughed nervously. "I can't even pay next month's rent." Evelyn replied, "Neither could I when I started." But ideas become companies when someone believes enough to begin. She introduced Marcus to local business owners. The first client agreed to a tiny contract, then another, then another. Each satisfied customer recommended someone else. The audience now knew something Marcus didn't during his darkest days. Losing his job hadn't ended his future. It had redirected it. Meanwhile, inside Harrison Tech Solutions, things weren't going well. At first, nobody noticed. Projects started arriving late. Customer complaints increased. The contractors Richard hired kept making costly mistakes. One longtime client quietly switched providers. Then another. Board members began asking uncomfortable questions. Richard blamed everyone except himself. The employees aren't loyal anymore. The economy, the market, the competition. Never once did he mention Marcus, but deep inside, he knew. 2 years later, Marcus stood inside a beautiful glass office overlooking downtown. A sign behind reception read, "Johnson Secure Systems, 43 employees, dozens of clients." Industry awards lined the hallway. More importantly, employees smiled. Ideas flowed freely. Nobody feared speaking up. Marcus remembered exactly how it felt to work under humiliation. He built the opposite culture. Every new employee heard the same message. We don't measure people by where they came from. We measure them by the value they create. That philosophy became the company's greatest competitive advantage. People stayed. Innovation exploded. Clients noticed. Success followed. Then one unexpected email arrived. Subject: Senior Operations Manager application. Attached resume. Richard Collins. Marcus stared at the screen. Surely, it couldn't be the same Richard. Could it? He opened the resume. Same face, same history, same signature. Then he noticed something unexpected. Richard's previous employer, Harrison Tech Solutions. Status: company dissolved after bankruptcy. Marcus leaned back silently. He hadn't celebrated. He hadn't smiled. Instead, he wondered, what happened? Curiosity replaced resentment. Interview day arrived. Richard entered wearing an old suit that no longer fit comfortably. Gone was the expensive watch. Gone was the confident swagger. Gone was the arrogant smile. He looked exhausted. Life had clearly changed him. Or had it? Marcus decided not to reveal himself immediately. He allowed human resources to begin normal interview questions. Richard answered professionally. He spoke about leadership, accountability, building healthy teams. Marcus listened carefully, then asked one question. Tell us about a leadership mistake you regret. Richard hesitated. For several seconds, silence. Finally, he admitted, I spent too much time protecting my position instead of developing people. Interesting, but not enough. Marcus asked another, can you give a specific example? Richard swallowed. There was one employee. I underestimated him. Still, no names. Marcus leaned forward. What happened to him? Richard looked down. I fired him. The room became quiet. He deserved better. I convinced myself he wasn't leadership material. I later discovered he had been carrying half the department. Every executive exchanged glances. This wasn't the answer they expected. Then Marcus slowly stood, walked around the conference table, stopped directly in front of Richard. I'm that employee. Richard's eyes widened instantly. The resume slipped from his hands. Color disappeared from his face. He whispered, Marcus. Now everything finally connected. The audience understood why the interview had felt strangely personal from the very beginning. But Marcus wasn't finished. He quietly pressed the remote. The screen behind him displayed old company records, performance awards, customer feedback, emails Marcus had received praising his work. Then another document appeared. The internal hiring records Angela had once sent him. Proof that Marcus's position had never been eliminated. Richard closed his eyes. He knew there was no denying it. I was wrong. No, Marcus answered calmly. You made a choice. The difference echoed through the room. Because mistakes happen accidentally. Choices reveal character. Richard slowly stood. I know I don't deserve this opportunity, but I'm asking anyway. The room waited. Would Marcus take revenge? Would this become the moment everyone secretly hoped for? Marcus looked through the glass walls toward dozens of employees working together. He remembered carrying his mother's medical bills, the humiliation, the laughter, the lonely elevator ride. He also remembered Evelyn Brooks. Someone had chosen to believe in him when she had every reason not to. Justice suddenly became more complicated than revenge. Marcus turned toward his leadership team. What do all of you think? Unexpectedly, the conversation changed. Some executives believed Richard deserved rejection. Others believed people could genuinely change. The debate lasted nearly 20 minutes. For the audience, the question was no longer whether Marcus had the power. The question became whether mercy could exist without abandoning justice. Finally, Marcus spoke. Richard, you won't be our operations manager. Richard nodded sadly. I understand, but everyone looked up. There is one position available. Confusion spread across the room. Marcus continued. Our nonprofit training division mentors unemployed professionals who are rebuilding their careers. We need someone willing to teach leadership by admitting where leadership failed. Richard looked stunned. It pays far less. It requires humility, and every new trainee will know your story. Marcus paused. If your apology today was genuine, this job will be harder than the executive position, but it might finally make you the leader you pretended to be. Tears formed in Richard's eyes. For the first time, they didn't look like tears of embarrassment. They looked like tears of honesty. I'll take it. Months later, former employees described something remarkable. Richard no longer introduced himself by his past titles. Instead, he began every workshop the same way. I once confused authority with leadership, and it cost me everything. He openly shared how bias, pride, and insecurity had destroyed not only another man's career, but nearly his own life. Some trainees forgave him, some never did. Marcus never forced anyone either way, because forgiveness cannot be demanded, only offered. Years later, Johnson Secure Systems became one of the fastest growing technology companies in the region, not because Marcus built a business around profit, but because he built one around dignity. People who felt respected gave their best. People who felt seen became innovators. People who were trusted became leaders. And Marcus never forgot the day someone tried to convince him he wasn't enough, because that painful day eventually became the foundation of everything he built. The greatest victories aren't always achieved by defeating the people who hurt you. Sometimes they're achieved by becoming the kind of leader they never imagined you could be. But here's a question worth thinking about. If you had been sitting in Marcus's chair, would you have hired Richard at all? Or would you have sent him away the moment you recognize him? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely love to hear what you think.